The first-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, coming off of a bye, travel to Husky Stadium on the West Coast, their first trip to the West Coast since last year against Oregon, and have a new test. The Huskies also have a new test as well. This is the first time they're playing a ranked opponent this year, the first time they are playing a Power 4 opponent. This is the Big Ten opener for both these teams, taking place at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 67 degrees Fahrenheit and 3-mile-per-hour winds projected. Very early projection, I know, but thought I'd include it. At kickoff, Ohio State opened up as a 13.5-point favorite, I think, last week. Before we resume this segment, some great and free ways to support this channel are liking the video, watching it all the way through, commenting your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear your analysis, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, and also hitting the notification bell. That way you can get notified when we go live or release new content. And don't just hit the notification bell for the channel. That's very helpful. But what's also helpful and free and useful to you, if you are a diehard fan of a specific team and want to get notifications whenever I make content about a specific team, not just my content in general, well, we have playlists for every Power 4 college football team, so the notification bell in any of those playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, there are ways to do so in the description, and you can sign up as a paid member. That line has come all the way down to minus 9.5 for Ohio State at some places, minus 8.5 at FanDuel. You got to bounce around to find where the line exactly sits, but it's at 8.5. 9.5 right now. Wouldn't be shocked if it came further down than that throughout the week. It's a new test for Ohio State. I said in a Twitter post that I think with hindsight, this is now Ohio State's toughest test. Said that and got some pushback for it, as people were saying I was diminishing the Texas win, and I'm not. That was an impressive win. I picked it to happen because I thought that Day was the better coach than Sark. Indeed, he is. I was correct on that, and I think that was obvious for the whole year. The fact that I thought Texas's matchup advantages that I believed in earlier in the preseason weren't quite as critical as some of Ohio State's matchup edges. And look, I was right. Picked Ohio State to beat Texas, was right there. However, Texas's offense until last Saturday against Sam Houston State, and Sam Houston State's awful, so I don't know how much you can take away from it. Their offense looked pretty trash. It was bad upon bad upon bad. Missed throw after missed throw, no confidence, lack of communication. I mean, these were things you saw against the Ohio State game, independent of what Patricia was doing. So the reason I said this is a new challenge, and perhaps the toughest challenge Ohio State's faced yet, is if, and I think this is very likely, the Texas offense that Ohio State played in week 1 was that same offense that trotted out against San Jose State and UTEP, then, well, yeah, you're going to beat them on your own home court with a good DC, a great roster, an elite roster, great defensively, and a skill position advantage at home. Of course you're going to beat a team that was operating in the 90s offensively. That was my point in that. It's not diminishing the win. It's just saying Washington, to this point, has a much better offense than Texas, and it's on the road with a quarterback who's never started on the road before. That's my only point. Ohio State's favored here. They should be favored. But Washington, they have a points per play offensively of a 0.735. And I don't care if they played UC Davis, Colorado State, and Washington State. Their offense with Jonah Coleman, with DeMond Williams, with Denzel Boston, with Amari Evans, Rashid Williams, with Quentin Moore, with Adam Muhammad, they run a really clean operation there offensively. Now, the defense is a completely different story. Defensively, I have questions for Washington, specifically as it relates to pass defense. It's not exactly a thing you want to have questions with when playing this Ohio State team. But quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, and really the offense as a whole, I think is an X factor for Washington. I think they are pretty good there on that side of the football. Ohio State also is wide receiver, tight end, and then I think they're great at defensive backfield. I didn't include Sayin as an X factor here because I don't think that he by himself or his room is as good as the receiver room, tight end room, linebacker room, or the defensive back room, especially safety. I think that Sayan's really, really good and great, but he's not the best player on his roster. He's not. He's not even, I think, a top 5 player on the roster or a top third of the starters. I mean, Ohio State has really, really good players. Quarterback is really, really good, but other players are more proven. Better, I would say, as it stands right now. I think that Washington's quarterback in Demond Williams Jr. is actually better than Julian Sayin to this point, but we'll get into that a little bit later in this segment here. Ohio State is ranked second in FPI nationally with a 22.4 rating. Washington's rating is a 13.2. That is 24th. These teams, look, I think that both have strengths on offense. Washington lacks on defense, and that is where Ohio State, I think, gets that 8.5, even though they are on the road traveling across the country, is their defense has a huge margin of superiority. What am I even saying? I'm still focused on that itch. That was bad. Ohio State's defense is one of the best defenses in the land. Same with the offense. I think Washington's offense is one of the best in the land. I cannot say that about the Washington Huskies defense. Can't say that. So how is Washington going to pull this out if they can? Because this line is 8.5, 9.5 at some places. The consensus is Ohio State wins by a touchdown or probably 14, 17 points, somewhere in that range. Somewhere in between one full touchdown and 3 scores is probably what the expected margin of victory is for the Ohio State Buckeyes in this game. So what does Washington have to do? Well, they have to get a few stops. I think that's the main storyline here. And as for Ohio State, depending on how they travel, and by that I mean how well they handle the travel in a new environment, that can also play into Washington's hands in a variety of different ways. So, quarterback, we're going to talk about this for a few seconds or a minute here. I think Demond Williams is definitely better than Julian Sayin. Definitely. It just depends on how much better he is. Now, you may push back on me. You may for that. The reason I say that is because Sayin is clearly, and you saw this a little bit in the Texas game where he missed some reads, or in the games against inferior opponents where he panicked at times when things didn't go perfectly, through a pick or a bad ball. I think he is operating in the most QB-friendly system in America. Oregon is close, but I think Dante Moore on film and on tape has looked better than Sayin, and they've let him do more within that offense. Sayin's a great QB. Demond Williams Jr. is a near elite QB. He does not have the receivers, the tight ends, or the pass protection offensive line that Sayin has. Nor does he have the defense that Sayin does to give him multiple opportunities. Williams is second in QBR, 6 touchdowns, 778 passing yards, 198.8 passer rating with 220 rushing yards. Julian Sayin, for context, is 779 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 75.9 QBR. His long scramble is of 3 with -7 rushing yards. He's only been sacked once, 199.8 passer rating. I think that the question in this game is how much better is Williams than Sayin. Sayin could easily have the better game here because his team is that much better. The roster is that much better. But Washington has the QB edge. If they didn't, they'd have no business only being favored to lose. So I meant be 8.5-point underdogs or favored to lose by 8.5. The spread would be that much wider in Ohio State's favor if not for Washington's quarterback advantage. That's important. Pass protection is key here. Does Sayin's pass protection continue to hold against an aggressive defense? I think it will. What about Washington's pass protection? That I'm a little bit unsure about. Washington's offensive line, from what I can tell, is pretty porous for the skill position players they have. Ohio State, though, only generates a 12.6% havoc rate, which means only 12.6% of their opponent's plays are sacks, TFLs, interceptions, passes defended, or forced fumbles. Washington only allows a 7.9% havoc rate. The offensive line, I think, is a weakness of the offense, but it's a better unit than what they had last year, and the skill position players are better than what they had last year. I'm very curious to see what Patricia does and what Fish does with that chess match there. Ball control is important. Who runs the football better? I think that Washington has the better rushing offense, mainly because of the mobile QB on top of Jonah Coleman. So Washington has running back figured out and QB run figured out to a degree that Ohio State does not. As to who has the better run blocking O-line, I have not seen enough valuable film from either team to digest that. I would lean to Ohio State, but that's probably because of familiarity and seeing them play against Texas and also just giving them benefit of the doubt. And maybe I should be giving that to Washington's rushing offensive line and run blocking instead. But leave that up to interpretation. I think it's pretty close either way. Who covers better? And can Ohio State handle the travel and the noise? Those are, I think, the final factors of this game. There are some others, of course, but these are the main ones that I just wanted to talk about here. I am leaning towards Ohio State to win. I am. And in fact, I'm going to pick them to win. But I do think that they're only going to win by a touchdown. They could win by more. If Ohio State doesn't win by a touchdown, it's more likely they win by more than Washington wins outright. But there is a world where Washington wins outright and quarterback has a huge part of it. I think that there will be a lot of points scored in this game. I think that you're going to see Washington hit the 20s or 30s. They could hit even more than that. If they win, they're going to hit more than that. I don't think there's a world where Ohio State scores fewer than mid-30s, maybe upper 30s. They're going to score that or more than that. Washington will score in the low mid-20s or higher than that. That's what I see here. I don't think Washington's being held to under low mid-20s. Ohio State is not being held to under mid-high 30s. If Washington wins, it'll be in like a 45-42 or 43-42 style of game, or more than that. If Ohio State wins, it could be that, and the scores are flipped, or it could be Ohio State 56, Washington 24. So I'm kind of going in the middle of that there, and then leaning towards the line movement. That's kind of my thought there. I think that Ohio State's passing offense is going to eat this Washington pass defense alive. I think Sane will have a clean pocket. He'll get to throw. The question will be just, is he rattled and does he read the defense properly? For Ohio State's rushing offense, I don't think they'll run that well against Washington's defense. It's the one thing that Washington's defense does well is they only allow, let me find it here, 3.6 yards per carry and a 35.7% rushing success rate. That would, I think, matter and be a big reason to pick an upset here, because when you were able to prevent Ohio State from controlling the game on the ground, that's when the fun begins for their opponent. But the fun begins for Ohio State when you can't protect you can't protect your backfield defensively, because they'll just go over the top on you or they'll slice and dice you. And that's kind of what I think Ohio State does to this Washington defense. I think that Ohio State will do a respectable job defending the pass from Washington, actually, though they'll have some opportunities, make some big plays there. I do think that how Washington scores points here and stays in the game is their mobile QB who can avoid sacks, Damon Williams Jr., and then Adam Muhammad, Jonah Coleman. I think they'll be able to run on this Ohio State run defense. Jed Fish will get creative. They'll be able to scheme things. I like Washington's offense in this game. I just like Ohio State's offense more, and I especially like their defense more. I also think they have the better staff. They're obviously more talented. If this is a game that comes down to a field goal or special teams, you'd pick Washington. If this is a game that I think comes down to rushing offense, pick Washington too. The problem is so much has to go right for the Huskies to even be in that position. So as much as I think that Washington will be competitive here, I think Ohio State earns another close win. It's a feather in their cap traveling out to the West and winning against a top 25 power-rated team. And they're going to move on to 4-0. Washington will move on to 3-1 with, I think, some semblance of at least encouragement. Maybe not a moral victory, because not everyone likes those, but I think they'll play Ohio State competitively. And I think that they will have some opportunities to maybe even win the game. But I'm trusting Ryan Day, Going with Ohio State, their roster advantage, the coaching edge, and the overall talent and depth edge, and picking them to win, but I think Washington will cover. Thank you so much for watching this segment on College Football with Sam. Before we close out here, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video around, comment your thoughts and analysis down below so I can read them and reply to them if I have the time. Members get priority replies, but I try to reply to everyone. And also hit the notification bell for the channel and also for any team playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, you can always super chat me in the comment section, but I prefer that you sign up as a paid member of the Patreon page or as a YouTube member, or that you can purchase some wonderful merchandise to represent us. I'll see you all soon and have a fantastic day.